Al probably would have been proud of us. Many of the, probably Monty and myself, and some for the Leman. We rode to many meetings with Al where he wrote the talk. People used to say he could write the talk during his introduction. So a 72-hour time frame to put a Kern Camp lecture together, Al probably would have been very, very proud of us, I think. So, but nobody better to kind of stay in the foxhole with you than Paul and Ruth. So this is what we got going. Peter already did that. It could be a very short talk, and so we talked. I got a different message from Peter, from Bob, from Scott D. on what you're supposed to talk about. He kind of said, well, you just got to fill in. Peter probably said it's Savior. So we were open-ended, but yet going different directions. Hopefully we satisfy everybody there. But Raul is going to talk about the world. And we get to see the world. We get all around the world, all of us at Swine Vet Center. And it's a crisis. I've never seen it this tough in 32 years of practice. So it's very, very difficult. Could be a very short talk. Losing 25 to 30 bucks a pig we have for 24 months. It doesn't project very good for the next 18 months. At that point, none of our producers will have any money. So that's the short of it. Hopefully it doesn't all push out that way. Many and most producers are broke or nearly broke. I've never been at as many banker meetings, as many owner meetings. They keep calling at night. They call on Saturdays and weekends. What are we going to do? And it's tough. You don't have a lot of good answers. So there's Steve Meyer's Paragon Economics shows no profits for a long time. Equity is back to the mid-90s. So very difficult situation. Everybody read this close last week when Successful Farming came out. Everybody wanted to know if AgStar and Farm Credit would be on the list as owning all hogs. And if you look close, I'm not sure that says AgStar Farm Credit right down at the bottom. But really the first time since '94 list was created, they did shrink the industry a little bit. And so took a couple 100,000 sows out, 6.4%. And I'm sure the banks have a fair amount of equity and or interest in lots of those producers. So what is it? Ruth found a pretty good picture. It's a crisis. It's kind of a meltdown. We're seeing survival mode tactics going on, and really are seeing a last man standing type of attitude from everybody almost. So what happened? It started a couple years ago, the ethanol industry. We got government subsidies in the U.S., 50 cents. We had high oil prices, all translated into high corn and soy. My 32 years of practice, $1 to $2.25, $2.50 was a range for corn. All of a sudden last year we had $7 and $8 corn and telling us we're going to run out of corn, so you better buy more. Could be 10 bucks, could not even get it. Producers are really focused on all that last year. And so the ethanol happened. That added our input costs, added higher costs of inputs, and it's not going to go away. We have 300 million gallons within 70 miles of St. Peter coming into production within the last 30 and next 60 days. So that's 100 million bushels of new corn going to be used in the ethanol industry within short distance of St. Peter. Some of that we get back with DDGs. China happened. We definitely got a wrong signal a year ago. We probably should have been feeling the pinch and starting to contract or slow down growth. Somebody asked me last winter at a meeting, I was in Canada, and they said, are you liquidating? How much are you liquidating? And I said, we're not quite done expanding yet. We still have pigs that had to come to market. So we expanded 1 year too long there, so we got a bad signal, and we're paying for it right now. Paragon puts it up there as kind of an anomaly, a blip. We're still actually on like exports on a trend up, but you can see the tremendous signal we got that we were going to be able to raise and sell more pork. We have trouble exporting, and You have all the politics that join in that kind of decision when we're in an export market. Daryl Olson is, every meeting I'm at with him, he talks about we should just get back to where we don't have to export. That's a tough business to be in. Here's the wet market in downtown Guangzhou with the guy sleeping. If you look close, you can see a guy sleeping on the counter there. I was there late in the morning, and they don't like our food safety. What else happened? Success disease, circle vaccine's been incredible. Easily 6 to 9% more pigs. And it's almost like the circle vaccine did it 1 year and dropped the deaths, but the next year we got healthier again. Joe Connor and Paul and I were talking yesterday, and we're one notch healthier today than we were a year ago. And we know that, the circle vaccine affects both sides of the immune system, so we're getting more immunity. So we had all these other bugs besides the virus of circle, and now we've had a year and a half of healthy immune system. And I think some of the little bugs, parasuicis, streps, that type of thing, they're just better than they were. And so health, I don't think in my 32 years we've been this good. It is nice not to see the PDNS and the piles of dead pigs. That's really nice. But we're raising way more pigs, way more pounds than we ever imagined. Almost every client has charts like this. They went up in the circle, and now they're down. They want to show you. They're losing their butt, but they want to show you. Look at how few deads we had last week. They're still proud of production. Genetics. The genetic companies have done a tremendous job working on total born alive, but we didn't get as much as we thought we would until the last couple of years. Now, are we figuring out how to run sow barns, or did circle play a part in there? Every farm we go to, total born lives up, pigs per sows up. We're producing more pigs. They're very focused right now because a lot of producers don't know really what big picture thing they should be doing. They got to be where they are because they were good pork producers. That's what they're doing. Last year they had to worry about corn. So we have genetics and circle vaccine, lots of pigs. 30 pigs per sow. I was in Worthington or Fairmont, Minnesota, sometime in the late 70s when Al came home from England and talked about 20 pigs per sow. We were at 14. That carrot way out there. Well, 30 has been a carrot for a while. Now we have producers doing 30. Better gilt production. PIC and Jose and Joaquin have been running around talking about better gilt production. Well, that's one of the things producers are focusing on, and we are getting better gilt production. We target 92% farrowing rates, 13, 14 total born, and we get it. Greenwood put this one together for some talks he gave this summer and said, here we are, year to date. $135, $140 cost production. We're revenue of $110, $25 loss. That's coming off of a couple bad years. Producers say, we got to fix this. We got to do better. And I say, well, you can only do so much better. If you had 30 pigs per sow and 0 death loss, you're still going to lose money. And so it's a difficult decision just to outproduce yourself into profitability. You can't do it right now. So it's a different time than I've ever seen. So you look at the current swine industry, the global recession, we are caught off guard by the H1N1. We're still producing too many hogs, and most of our clients are focused on producing more yet, thinking they're going to outproduce and produce themselves into profitability. Exports are down, as we said, and so we got excess supply that we got to dump onto the market, which hurts price. The only ones not in real serious trouble today, if you see a relaxed client, they probably did a pretty good job of hedging. That's kind of sad that you're in a production business and you only made money because you hedged right. Well, Bob, I don't know if you're that good a hedger, why you have to raise the pigs. You could be in the Caribbean in front of a screen or something and just make money if you knew how to hedge that good. And most of the time in my 32 years, when somebody does really good for a couple years hedging, Guido wants it back at some point. So it may head back to Chicago. That last man standing attitude. Ruth found these pictures, and, it's like we're getting there. And I think the bankers would all say that they have production systems that are already over the edge, never to be able to get back up, some that are teetering on the edge, and maybe these guys are the great producers and the hedgers that are still a ways away from the edge. But it's tough. There is no one that's immune to not being on that ledge right now. The last man standing attitude is really prevalent in the Midwest. They think of themselves, they look out, they see one of the world's best corn crop, the biggest in the history of the U.S., right outside their door. They have packing plants, they have pigs, and it's like, we should be able to be the #1 pig producer. This should not be happening to us. And so it's a tough signal they get. It's not like 98. 98 was short. We had some protection. It looked like we just had to get through it. We got rid of some old barns that should have been gone anyway. The barns that are going empty today, of which there's few, are good barns. And so the recession, we can't say if we drop so many pigs, then we'll make a bunch of money. We're not sure if people are going to come back and buy it. There's a recession, and we have the flu. So what's a producer to do? It's very difficult. They love production. They love looking at their pigs, and they're doing good right now. Some of them have worked 20 years to have their farms work this good. And so they don't want to go slash all the vaccines. They don't want to go slash all the stuff they've been doing and change things. This is what they wanted to do. They're producers. And so it's been very difficult for them. You know, they tried, Greenwood and some producers tried the sow retirement program. That didn't go to the PRP last summer. It kind of got nixed at the expo. Canada had already had one sow buyout, and they're in the process of doing another one, I think. Where's Ernie? Ernie in the room said, I think he told us last year, every time you talk about Canada or show an international slide set, you're supposed to talk about IPVS and show this picture. So wherever Ernie is, I showed the picture, I got that off the hook. Producers are kind of almost paralyzed. You know, they call you up and they talk to you about the same things they talked last week. What should we do? You know, they want to produce more pigs. One of them said, if I had known it was going to be this bad, I'd done something different. Well, 2 years ago, they would have not built a couple sow farms. Maybe we would have talked some other things about, yeah, I would have got serious about cutting my sow herd back if I'd known it was going to be this bad. And so it's pretty good looking backwards. So we've had PRRS eradication discussions. Maybe we should have started something nationally or been more aggressive and followed the lead of Bob and Barb Straw and stuff like that more aggressively if we had known it was going to be this bad. I pulled this slide, and it reminded me of George Burns smoked cigars for 90 years of his 100 years, and he said, if I'd known I was going to live this long, I'd taken better care of myself. And so it's pretty easy looking back. And same thing in the pig industry. If I'd known it was get this bad, I would have done something different. So we maybe should have talked PRRS eradication, national PRRS eradication, at the end of 2008. Saying, let's get something going, let's control this industry. So we're going to talk more about PRRS eradication, but we want to say, and why do we say that kind of? Because everybody knows. I made some calls 3-4 months ago to Butch and Joe Connor and stuff, and when we talked a little bit about PRRS national eradication, how do you get rid of PRRS? We just shut the sow farm down. No gilts. It could be 4 months, it could be 6 months, it could be 9 months, the PRRS goes away. And so that doesn't cost a lot of money, and maybe you might produce a few less pigs. So that's not a bad thing. So we're going to have a section at the end. Paul's going to do some stuff in the middle. I'm going to talk a little bit more about some thoughts along that lines. And it's bad right now because in 2 weeks it's October. We all get feeling pretty good in August, September. You've quieted the herds down from last winter. Production is awesome. Guy a couple years ago came up to me in August and said, Doc, that PRRS program you're doing is working awesome. And I go, I'm too old to get cocky there. August, you do not brag about your PERS programs, you know. Talk to me in January, February, and see if my program has any merit. So we have a lot of our pigs. We take negative. Paul, as I said in my Howard Dunn a few years ago, no one attacks diseases like this man right here. He gets rid of diseases. Come August, we got 95% of our herds flowing negative pigs right now. Life is really good. But it's like you just get there, and here comes October. So we know this winter, 25 to 45% of our herds and flows are going to turn PERS positive. It's sickening. I mean, we're not making any money. We know we're coming up to the bad time. So nationally, we could have produced a few less pigs maybe if we were on a program, and we'd be well on our way. It'd be great for worldwide competitiveness if we got to be PERS negative. Maybe we're not going to have higher priced pigs. Maybe we just got to work on lowering our cost. Focus all our effort on that. I was around in the pseudorabies days. There's a September 3rd. We used to get these every time there was a change. So 1999, there's all the positive pseudorabies herds. It was pretty fun watching that and being involved in that, getting rid of pseudorabies. There's a Minnesota map in 99, or 98, 99, and 2000. That was really good. Producers really like getting rid of that. So we're going to talk more on that PERS eradication a little bit later. A little bit about just what are they doing. You know, is there anything they can do, or what do we see being done? So producers are, and this is in no particular order. We pulled a bunch of these. Surprisingly, not surprisingly, but they have spent some money. Automatic lactation feeders. So it increases feed intake, decreases feed wastage. You walk down the aisles now, there's not feed laying down the farrowing alleys. Decreased non-productive days, increased total board. Good thing. Labor is easier. Sows eat better. Almost everyone's gone up 2 pounds per day. So we see the intake feeders, the tube feeders going in. I bet we're up, Paul, 75, 80% of our clients are done. Very good thing for production. Wean age. Wean age is getting older everywhere. So Roger Main did that a long time ago. Not enough people implemented it. And so we knew that we would pay for itself on death loss, average daily gain, and feed efficiency. We have all these light pigs at the light end of the spectrum. When we're weaning at 17 days or so, these pigs are problem pigs. So you produce these pigs, you don't get any money for them. And so moving that whole bell curve over to the right has really helped us. The interesting thing with today's genetics, you know, 15, 20 years ago, we didn't get the benefit on the sows on the 4-week wean farms. We do today. And so all of a sudden we wean at 22, 24 days. We're having 14, 15 total born. The genetics were there, but we weren't getting it out of them at 17 days. And so reproduction has paid for these extra days. Increased farrowing rates, increased total born, decreased wean to first service, less non-productive days, increased pigs weaned per sow, increased weaning weight. Wow. Just by weaning older. And it already got paid for in the grow finish. So very interesting there. Going to 22 to 24 days, some producers are getting sharp enough. When you go talk about that, they go, I don't think I'll produce less pigs from what I hear. And really most of our clients that have gone 5 to 10% reduction in order to get an older wean age produce the same number or more pigs. It's one of those, when you take it out to the farm and you implement it, you get about 8 months into it, you're the smart consultant and stuff, and the client goes, duh, you know, this is really easy this way. You know, the sows cycle in 4 days, you breed them, they have 90% farrowing rate, they wean, they start on feed, and it's like, how come it took you smart guys so long to tell us this? So, another duh, you know, that sometimes we got to have the guys on the farm tell us. You don't miss much when you get rid of sows. You go tell the farm to get rid of 10% of the sows, they weren't producing very much. The dairy guys are telling us the same thing. You get rid of the bottom 10% of dairy cows, milk production stays about the same. Less labor. Things work easier. You know, when we had to put sows in the hallway, wash a room, load, move, stuff like that, when you reduce the herd a little and it flows just right, you get better production. They knew that. We've probably been, I think, Mike Muirhead used to call it greedy man pig's disease. You know, just too many sows in there, roll, roll, roll. growers are getting scrutinized pretty hard right now. So every production system that has contract growers, they're finding the bottom end and they're going to fix them or get rid of them. And so it's first time that the owners have had the power to go fix some of the growers. They're bringing down the system, they're finding them, get rid of them. Producers are euthanizing the bottom end pigs. So anything born, those little squeakers that you can hold up, you can split suckle, you can get milk in them, but they don't end up being a good pig. And so we don't end up getting full value for them. So more and more are putting SOPs in for euthanizing bottom end pigs. We want more full value pigs. We're also not putting iron and antibiotics. We're not vaccinating those pigs. So often we put a circle vaccine, most expensive vaccine we've ever had, at the sow farm at weaning. You get to the nursery, they grade the pigs and they kill 2 or 3%. We just put a vaccine in them. It's another duh. We go out to the farm and go, hey, we've just got this great idea. We're not going to try to raise these 1-pound pigs. And the farrowing ladies go, yeah, they all die about 2-3 days later. And so we're getting rid of euthanizing the junk faster out in the finishing barns. This started last year with $7, $8 corn. They're not going to do that. And so that's continuing. It kind of makes the finishing barns look better. More producers are single stocking versus double stocking, and it's working, it's helping. And there's barns available. And so big trend for that. Single fill wean to finish, obviously less transportation, less crowding effects. We match labor better sometimes. A guy, you send them 8,000 pigs, they're not going to spend 20 hours in the barn. They're going to do 5 to 6 hours worth of chores. And so shorter fill time works as well. We are taking some health risks. We talk about that. So maybe some of the antibiotics that were routinely done to everybody at processing or at weaning, we're looking at those for cost. Some pulse antibiotics, because they had parasuis 6 years ago. We're looking at those, and they have been pulled on some farms. We're trying to, like guided laser, trying to use our antibiotics and medications and stuff exactly where the problem is. More individual treatments. Pfizer's done a great job of, walking the pen type things, educating producers, and so they kind of know that story. We're kind of bringing it up again. Hey, try to target the pig, individual pig. Reviewing all vaccination schedules. What can you do without? Older sows that have had 7 shots of parvoleptoerie, they're not getting another one. Pre-farrowing vaccines, you have a good feedback program going. Scours isn't an issue. So we're looking at some of that. As everybody knows, diagnostics aren't going in for respiratory stuff, influenza, and we're running the systems pretty good right now. So maybe we did too much in the past. So when that comes back, we're going to target and put better programs in for doing some of that. Weights are a huge problem, and I'd say our clients aren't doing much yet. Used to be an old program in the past, 70s and 80s. First thing they did when times were tough was to drop weights, and I have not seen a lot of that. This was one of the coolest summers we've ever had. Pigs grew incredibly. And so, one, if they tried to do it, they couldn't get the loads in, and by the time they got the loads in, the pigs were big again. And so we have not done much there. Fall problems, we have it every fall. Coming up on the worst management time of the year. People have a day job. They're supposed to be taking care of pigs. Now they take on a full-time harvesting job. Going to be the biggest crop they've ever had. So it's going to be busy. And they also do manure. We've kind of let that slide a lot because we like growers and we can't find any more. We've had growers that have all their people in and say, tell me how you're going to handle chores this fall. We cannot afford mistakes. So tell me how you're going to do your chores. We're not going to accept. Or if you're not going to do chores, we're going to put somebody there and do chores and charge you back. So it's a tough time of year that we've always gotten worse. We go see the mistakes. You guys have all seen them. So you get chore neglect. Hopefully they get in the barn, but not identifying sick pigs. They don't give enough shots. They don't euthanize at the right time. Ventilation, you always see mistakes there as weather starts to change. We always have to go investigate for insurance companies. And so we're trying to get in front of that and saying we don't want to have that wreck this fall. We can't afford it. We're not making money as it is. PRRS vaccine, we started it about 2 years ago. We started Yeske on some farms, maybe 3 years ago almost, started doing a little more PRRS vaccine to finishing pigs because they were negative pigs going into northern Iowa, southern Minnesota, and they would get toasted when PRRS started floating around. It reduced death loss in half, still got some PRRS. Paul has done it, Dr. Eisminger, one of my partners, they've been leaders in that. We vaccinated probably 70–80% of our naive pigs going in. And I actually think some of the health issues that we got in northern Iowa and southern Minnesota, how good it is right now, probably has contributed to keeping those monster blows at bay a little bit. So that's been a good thing. People are looking at that and saying, God, I still like that. They're planning on still doing that. So
one of the things that has really surprised me, and today it's almost to the point where it's really incredibly easy for us to be making the PRRS negative pig. And it seems a little arrogant to say that statement, but it's really become quite reliable on how we can make these negative pigs in the system. We've got certainly ways to monitor this through the systems. We test the farms on a monthly basis, usually testing like 30 animals that are the largest pigs are the older pigs in the farrowing, and if we got negative gilts going back into the system. So certainly been a focus of ours, or myself indeed, on working on eradication, and certainly the returns are very high. The cost is in making sure we deliver. If we look at some quick numbers here, just for the blue bars are what we would have in a PRRS myco-negative. The red or the green bars would be the PRRS positive, myco-positive. So we know there's a difference, and we can measure it in our systems. And Tom's going to talk some more about that, I think, today, and how we can really follow through, how we can really get these numbers and hone in on it so we understand what that cost really is. I think traditionally we talked about disease eradication. A lot of us thought about depopulation, repopulation. Well, it's gotten to be such a good idea in Minnesota that the public health has even picked it up. And at the state fair, they depopped and repopped the 4-H dorm. So we know that system works. It's time tested and time proven, but it is the most expensive. Herd closure has been a system we've used to allow that immunity in the sow herd to go ahead and develop, and to go ahead on these diseases where we clear the infection, to go ahead and let that shedding stop, and then we can go ahead and bring negative animals back into that. Certainly, early on in practice, I learned that with TGE, and then we started adapting it to PRRS, mycoplasma, and some other agents, I'm sure, as we go forward. What do these herd closures mean? Well, what we do is we stop bringing animals. One way you can do it, the simplest way, is just to stop bringing animals into your herd for a period of time, but the pushback from producers has been, well, I can't maintain my inventory. So we did a couple of different things to help maintain the inventory, and one of those was to do off-site breeding projects. Certainly they got some more expense when you move those animals off-site. You got to breed them and take care of them there. We've used the finishing sites just to hold the population, and what we do in those is we just simply freeze the population. We bring in what we're going to do for the period of time we're going to close the herd, and then after that we just draw the gilts off in a normal flow, and we don't add anything to that population. Really, the only cost of this is the cost of the finishing space that's sitting there empty as you draw those animals out. Well, what we've learned is that for PRRS anyway, and certainly thanks to Butch and Monsi for teaching us that the 200 days is really a critical number. And once we got that piece of information, it was just really, we've had about 100% success once we get out to that time frame. We do most of ours 210 days, the 7 months just to make it easy, give ourselves a little bit of slush room there, Butch. So, but we're going a little further than that, but I think it's really worked quite well. You can certainly do it without the direct virus exposure. What we've used the direct virus exposure for is to make sure we homogenize the herd, make sure we can start counting, and everybody wants to get done, so we want to make sure we got a date we can start counting. So really all you got to do is go past the last clinical signs, but in these situations when we use the direct virus exposure, we know the date to start the counting process. And one of my partners, Dr. Jeff Fetter, did a pork board study where he followed herds through, and about 18 weeks is what it takes to get to negative pigs. Now, we won't bring animals back in until we get to that 200 plus days, but at 18 weeks, if you're following things, and I say 20 weeks for sure, if we're not getting negative pigs, something's going wrong. I did a pork board study as well, where we were looking at bringing the gilts back in, and in both those studies, essentially, we're very close to 100% of the animals being able to be PRRS negative to the original virus that was on the farm. Well, at the same time, we were working at doing these herd closures and cleaning up PRRS. We've heard about the Swiss Depop models, the Swiss eradication of mycoplasma, and said, gee, I wonder if that could go along with doing some of these PRRS programs. And certainly what we found was that it worked well. And once we got the piece of information from Carlos and Maria Peters that we need to be 240 days, all we had to do was add another 30 days to our PRRS closures, and we could take care of mycoplasma at the same time, get the double bang, so to speak, from the program. And it really wasn't that hard to do. We do 2 doses of vaccine prior to the time frame. Sometimes we're doing it quarterly ahead of time in some different protocols, and there are different protocols that are successful using lincomycin and other antibiotics 2 weeks prior to the introduction of negative animals, treating the pigs with duraxin at day 1, day 14 for 4 weeks. And really the cost, around $6.50, isn't a huge cost when we think about the long-term cost of living with mycoplasma and the effect it has on performance. We've also done some rapid method eradication and some acute outbreaks, and certainly has worked well for us. We go through and we vaccinate all the sow herd, booster the immunity, come through and do 2 injections. We've done them with duraxin, where we do an injection, come back the whole herd 2 weeks later and do the same thing again. We've had some checklists we put together to help follow the process, make sure things are going well. Put together some partial budgets to take a look at what the cost is so that you can see how long it's going to take to return that investment. And when we do the traditional closures, it's about just a little over 2 months to get that money back, and so it doesn't have to stay negative a long time. Went back and looked at, and there's probably some more herds in here that we don't have in the numbers here, but roughly about 40,000 sows we've done this. 85% of those have stayed negative for a year. And so 75% over the course of time we've done them, and we've been doing them over about the last 6 years. And in this breakdown of numbers, about 30,000 of those sows have been under the traditional methods with the herd closure, and about 95% of those herds continue to be mycoplasma negative today. Under the rapid method, again, high risk, high reward, a little bit more risk there with the 50%. So hopefully we can work on that technology and get that to work better as we go forward as well. Well, certainly what we've seen, as you saw those numbers early on, we've lowered the mortality, we've increased the average daily gain, we've improved the feed efficiency, we've reduced the variation, and have less medication. And I think when we come through this time, there's really no excuse for any of us sitting here to have any more of those expensive chronic diseases going forward. We need to make sure we either have an eradication program in place to get rid of them, or we're just simply going to depopulate those herds. Filtration, this has been the most consistent way, particularly in the hog-dense areas for us, under the current conditions, that we can make PRRS and myconegative pigs for the downstream production. And certainly, with more commercial forms of filtration coming into place, it makes it a little easier than when we first started out. And this is just showing a building where the air comes through the attic, and some of those changes, and with what we're seeing today, we can get that cost down to about $100 a sow in these type of situations. We've had a number of herds do it, and I think there's more on this list. And even in the hard economic times we're in today, we have some producers that are continuing to add filtration to their systems because they want to have consistent production. And what we're seeing is, so far, we've had 2 breaks. One had some trucking biosecurity issues and damage to filters. The other break was there was no backdraft damper controls in that particular situation. So we still feel that there's really been no known filter failures yet. And so I think that's an important take-home message, particularly if you have production in a hog-dense area. Flu breaks have been very minimal. If you think about the number of herds and the number of years that filters have been in there, only having 2 flu breaks is pretty phenomenal, I think. And mycoplasma has also been controlled well there also. One of the other things we can do besides the disease eradication, and this one doesn't cost anything, that's kind of the nice thing about it, is do a better job of marketing. We can do this one really free, making sure we get the optimum weight for the load, the barn, the flow. I've done some work with Elanco and their Knowledge Solutions group and Dr. Dennis Depopulation on looking at understanding the difference between the optimum pig weight for the individual pig versus the optimum weight for the group, and understanding what happens when we push that curve in, we get that standard deviation down lower, how we can raise that optimum pig weight to the same as the optimum individual. And he's developed, Dr. Depopulation's developed a spreadsheet that we've used with a small number of inputs where we can accurately go in and take a look at what some of this value would be. And one of the important things is really starting to work and understand what your Packer matrix is trying to tell you. They're trying to tell you what pig gives you the most value there and how do we get more of those pigs into that box. And this is a chart that, again, Elanco Solutions, Knowledge Solutions will put together. And the bottom chart is what's actually going on in the herd. The top chart is if we were to optimize that. If we were able to push that standard deviation down, we were able to get those numbers down into that green box and get more of that darker green color. The darker the green, the more money you're going to have. Or, I guess today we should say, the less money you lose. And then in the future, we can start going ahead. After we get good enough at marketing, then we can start looking at what are some of the health things that are causing us to have more variation and causing us to miss this box. Well, it's really good if we can do these models and take a look at this and see how much money we're leaving on the table, but it still doesn't do us any good if we don't get the right pigs on the truck. And so it still comes back to that, and I think Tom's going to cover this a little bit more too, but just wanted to show some of the tools we've used to make sure we're getting the right pigs on the truck. Don't worry about this slide being small, but what this is a breakdown of 2,000 head finishing barn, 11 loads of pigs going to the slaughter. How'd we do getting them in the green box where we wanted to be? And I like this report a lot better. It's very visual. It's very easy to take to the farm. You can see that first, this producer did an excellent job. The yellow is heavy pigs. The blue is light pigs. You can see in that first load, the producer did an excellent job of getting the heavies and getting pigs in the box. The last two loads, he's got a lot of blue. You're going to have that. That's part of the system. That's what we got to do. This particular producer had over 75% of the pigs in the box, even doing a good job. He could do better. This guy didn't do quite so well. What happened? He marketed half the pigs in the first two draws that were lightweight pigs, and he marketed heavies in the second to the last load. I think this is something we got to go back again. The beauty of this is it doesn't cost anything to do. One other thing that people have been doing, we don't have as many of the scale barns as we once did, but some of the barns where we have the ability to take pigs off feed before we market them, again, it's something we can do. It doesn't cost us anything, and one other way we can save some cost. Looking at energy costs, certainly if we have to come in and make some changes of controllers, go to the controllers, and the Ventra is one that actually, when you're not using a fan at 100%, it doesn't bleed off that extra energy as heat, so you truly are saving energy. Making sure we don't overventilate, that's probably one of the critical things that happens in the upper Midwest. We run too much air in the winter, having that humidity in that 60 to 70%, and having some mechanism of measuring it over time. And doing energy audits at the farm, going through, are there things we could do better? Not only setting the ventilation, make sure we're not leaking too much cold air into the barns as we get into the colder time of the year, putting plastic on the inlet end of the tunnel barns, closing off the fans, using some plastic as hovers on these wean to finish barns. What can we do to be more efficient and reduce that energy cost? Another tool that's come into use is the MicroZone Controller. What it does is it reduces the amount of power going out, again, some power savings there, going out to the lamps, and it automatically steps down the temperature on a daily basis. And so again, as the pigs get bigger, once we get the heat lamps adjusted properly at day 1, day 2, the curve takes over and automatically reduces the amount of power going to the lamps. And what we found is it reduces a lot of labor because we don't have to go in and readjust the lamps on a daily basis as the pigs get older. We've also seen that the bulbs last a lot longer. The bulbs don't ever start up at 100% with this control, and they rarely run at 100%. So again, you're saving a lot of money there. The beauty of this one is, again, it's not a high cost to us, particularly in our part of the world. A lot of electrical co-ops are being willing to help support and fund some of this for us. So what is making sure that the system fits as far as the housing, and spent a lot of time looking at this and doing a lot of scratching on paper, put together a spreadsheet to look at this, and we use the non-productive farrowing crates to kind of drive this as well as the housing capacity we have. And you can see the numbers in red going ahead and looking at what the lactation length should be, what's your calculated lactation length, and then if we want to do some scenarios, what if we go to 24, what if we go to 20 or 22, 24, what's that going to do to pig numbers and pig flow through the system? And then also, what's it going to do to our housing? Does that free up some space for us? Does it allow us to do something different with our gilts coming into the herd? And then what's that do to inventory at the bottom? How much reduction might we be looking at, and the ability to look at that more closely? And we've taken it to the farms too and say, okay, let's make a map of the farm so everybody knows how the animals should be flowing within the system. And when we've done this and looked at some of these older weaning age, it's given us a chance to say, is the labor right sized as well as the barn, and do we really need that same amount of labor we did when we were pushing harder?
National PRRS eradication, some thoughts that we've had. Worst economy in 32 years of my practice, losing hundreds of millions of dollars of equity. As I said earlier, producers are paralyzed. They're focused on production. We're making more pigs. Very few expectations of profits. The retirement program didn't go. Lawyers got involved. The U.S. probably has too many lawyers for this to have gotten off the ground. I mean, it just... So suggestions. Joe Connor and I will talk fairly frequently, and we were talking one Saturday morning after the retirement program. What else can we do? I mean, what's the next? How do we help save the industry? Peter, they were saviors. How do we become saviors? But the old guys used to say we'd grill our way out of it. We'd go sell pork and promote pork, and the old producers thought, can't we grill our way out of this one, Doc? And Joe and I talked about a 5 to 10% salary reduction of, putting it on a website, and you'd sign up, and they did that in '82 with a tie of yellow ribbon around the mailbox and say, I'm reducing weights. And everybody, that hasn't got a leader and taken that. The other thing we talked about, is it time? This is how pseudorabies, the end came for pseudorabies in '98, was like, we need help. How do we get rid of some pigs? Well, let's take out the pseudorabies sows. So that kind of happened the same feeling when we had in '98. So we talked about it. So we've always been big believers in turning negative situations into positive. You have a TGE break and you have empty barns. Well, let's flow this and clean this up, and let's turn negative into positive. So we got a negative situation going here. We have very, very difficult disease situations. Everybody wants their pigs by the corn, so pigs are piling from everywhere into Iowa and Minnesota and upper Midwest around the corn. So it's putting a very difficult situation. We don't always have good answers, and that always feels bad when you don't have good answers. So Scott D. 3 years ago, when he was ASV president, said, we want to go a national or North American PRRS eradication. So Joe and I were talking like, when is that going to happen? Why don't we do it right now? Because we all know that you can get rid of PRRS. It just, you have to have a whole area be committed to do it, because otherwise you're getting lateral breaks. And so I joked at the time to Scott, like, what year are you going to do that? Because it all is going to have to be done at the same time. It's going to take a grassroots, producer-driven movement. Joe Connor and I talked quite a bit. He talked to his practice, I talked to mine. It's like, yeah, we have the tools to eradicate PRRS. Maybe we should go for it. We called Butch that weekend. Butch was headed to Washington on a flu mission and thought maybe this would be a better thing anyway. So Butch is a champion, has been for many years, his PIC and premium standard days of getting rid of PRRS. We couldn't have asked for a guy to kind of grab on and say, yeah, let's lead this charge. And so now there's been state meetings, there's been some national meetings. Butch had one this week, Wednesday, with the Pork Board and Swine Health Committee, and it's feeling a lot like '98 in the pseudorabies program. We got to get a grassroots going. Producers, we had a Minnesota meeting, and it's like, yeah, it's almost like we need something to work on. So, and we know how to do it. We had to use a lot of vaccine, a lot of money, a lot of work to vaccinate pseudorabies. This one is like, as Paul showed, shut the farm down, goes away. So it's an interesting concept. It's going to require a lot of team and area. You have to have everybody committed in an area. Why now? So we had some talking points Butch made us do at that meeting. Less production is okay. I'm losing $30 a pig. If you have less pigs, that's probably not a bad deal in my math. Empty barns, we're going to need to do partial depops. Max Rodabaugh was like, we have farrow to finish farms. How are we going to get rid of it there? Well, we got empty barns for the first time in the last 20 years. So you could do depop, repops. And really, what I saw, and I don't know if you saw Wednesday, Butch, right? When we had a Minnesota meeting, it's like, give me something to do. It's almost like I need a mission to forget about the markets, have me do something. I always want to be worldwide competitive. I want my clients to be top in the world. And PRRS in our neck of the woods doesn't make us top in the world. next 4 to 6 months, we're going to have ugly PRRS breaks. And so you go to South America, and kind of south of the Amazon there, Chile and Brazil don't have PRRS. I want to be competitive with those. Canada has, they always say they have PRRS light or something like that. They don't have the monster breaks that we do. And there's regions of the states that we work with. Joe Connor and I, like in Ohio and Pennsylvania's got areas. There's areas that are like little areas that are staying negative. And so I want to be competitive with those. The industry today, as Paul showed, some of this is working, but it's added cost. And so filters work. You can pay for them in a year or two. It works, but it is adding cost to our cost production. Some of the new technologies, MJ Biologics, Sera vaccines, they are helping, but they're still adding cost. So other talking points that we talked, we had a meeting, Paul and I were both at, that Butch had called, you know, big cost to the industry. If we got rid of PRRS, we'd have obvious benefits there, make us more competitive. Pseudorabies vaccine worked, but it's still good that we got rid of pseudorabies. We had cost and we had labor involved, so it was good to get rid of. There's welfare benefits. Boy, if you had people through some of these farms some days when you have abortion storms going, piglet nursery, death loss, piglet quality, I mean, those are bad things to see. Producers don't like that. They like seeing what they're seeing today. And so turn that negative into a positive. Producers that want to reduce inventory can take advantage of herd closure. That's such an easy one right now. You know, it's like when you're making $30 a pig, it's hard to shut the manufacturing plant down. But if you're not making that much money, why not shut it down, get rid of disease? And I think as veterinarians, we have to help those producers. Say, you could do this. And like Paul said, there should be no dysentery, no APP, no AR left after this one. Your herds have that, you should take them out. So they're not concerned, if they shouldn't be concerned, as they produce a few less pigs. And there's also ongoing costs. It's phenomenal how much blood testing that we do and bore studs and GDUs and stuff like that. There's a lot of costs there that isn't in that big number. Dale Polson thinks that big number is too big, but you could add a lot of these up. Other talking points. Daryl Holkamp said yesterday, I hadn't heard before, he said, this is a tough industry. This is a high-risk industry. He said, the job of being a pork producer kind of compares to being, got a job as diffusing bombs. You know, that's the same level of risk. You have PRRS, you have H1N1, and we don't even talk about foreign animal diseases yet. So raising pigs, pretty high risk. We have better tools than we've had for a long time. So this is a rope test. And so one of the big things bad about pseudorabies was you had to go out every 30 days. You'd call a producer up and say, hey, it's time to bleed again, and monitor your herd at 30 days. You go, you just did that. Your young vet was out the other day. You go, no, I checked the date. It's 29 days ago. And so time flew. Now we have rope testing. Jim McKean at Iowa State's done a lot of meat juice testing. So we have some better tools to monitor that was a pain with pseudorabies. We have success. There was a PRRS meeting yesterday, Morrison chaired and Peter. There's starting to be success. Laura Batista talked on New Mexico. Monsi's worked at Chile and Steve Henry. So we have, you know, some good things, some better tools. The risk assessment, so people understand their areas a little bit. This is Minnesota. Bob's shown this multiple times. And so no pigs up here, lots of pigs down here. He picked a county here that's kind of somewhere in the middle. He's going to expand that now. He's got the one county free. He's got 6 counties around it. He's only got 2 herds left there. He's going to start attacking Highway 212 and north. Kind of looks like that old pseudorabies map, Bob. Similar thing. Start working it on down. There's 3 projects going on in the U.S. right now. The Minnesota project, the Illinois project, 3 counties that they talked about yesterday, and the Michigan project that Barb talked about. And the natural, if we're going to control Iowa and southern Minnesota, we got to get the rest of the country. And so exactly what we did in pseudorabies, we started taking the low-hanging fruit. And to me, low-hanging fruits are Wyoming's and Montana's and all those, and start this thing and bring it in. So we end up, much like we did at pseudorabies, we ended up somewhere right in northern Iowa, southern Minnesota. North Carolina got on board before the Minnesota-Iowa area did and cleaned her up. And so that's where it's going to end up. We're going to have to end up with getting negative pigs piling into those areas, because right now it's like a cesspool of bugs coming into there. How are we going to do that at the end? I think sometimes I make the vaccine companies a little nervous, but to me, and Butch, you and I have talked about this, when we get to the fourth quarter, when we get to southern Minnesota, northern Iowa, North Carolina, we're going to need help. And so to me, the vaccine companies got to be right now thinking, how are we going to take it out at the end? Because I don't think we'll get a government buyout like we did with pseudo. So the research that's needed to how do these stop shedding, how do they reduce the shedding, how do they help the bug from transferring farm to farm as quickly as it seems to now. So we need a lot of that in, and that's where all the pigs are raised. So a lot of stuff there. You know, to sum up here a little bit, I don't like shrinking the industry. I've worked with my producers. I've watched them grow for 32 years. I've helped them become more competitive and be a better pork producer. I'm not liking this. We have to shrink. I've been all over in most major pig areas of the world. We're really competitive. How come we have to shrink? I mean, so I'm maybe part of the problem of the last man standing, but I'm not happy that we have to shrink the industry. The barns we're emptying today are not those outside lots that we did in '98. These are good barns that are going empty. Somebody starts making money, I'll guarantee you somebody's going to go and put pigs in there. So we're going to hurt our long-term profitability. We already have it. Everybody knows where the empty barns are, and they're flocking and looking at them and stuff like that. So they can be brought back into production pretty quick. How do we control this? We're having talks at meetings like, do we need a quota system or something? I'm not a big quota guy, but what are we going to control so we don't overproduce? Somebody gave us a lecture 2 weeks ago and said, you got to get over this production thing, and you got to get, you sell the meat, you have customers, and then you go produce as many pigs as you sold. Not the other way around. We produce a lot, and then we got to dump it. Kind of backwards. Midwestern finishing, Midwestern. We have a great industry and great products. I'd like to sell our way or market our way out of this. I'm not happy about shrinking the industry. The ethanol industry started the Growth Energy. It's another company. So they have everybody beaten up on ethanol. It's bad, it's bad, it's bad. And they just sit over here and go, it's good, it's good. We don't buy oil from Iraq. We don't buy oil from the Middle East. We have jobs. We have corn. We have da-da-da-da-da. They just stand up there and go toe-to-toe and saying it's a good industry. We end up kind of backpedaling too often, I think, and not promoting what we do well. And so I'd like to see more of this type of thing. Joe and I, we're old enough that we thought we could grill our way out of it. Joe, it might be bigger than that. But think about how we can promote our own industry and talk about it. Grilling promotions, order pork when you're dining out. Ruth knows I let her eat other stuff, but when the kids come out, I don't pay for the meal if they don't order pork. Ruth, I need her in these times, so I let her get by. Compliment chefs when you do it right. Call them on the carpet when they do it poorly. We give pork certificates. I've given pork certificates to my sister like 15 years in a row, and she opens up the envelope and goes, oh, what a surprise, pork certificates for Christmas. But they love it. They always compliment. They had these friends over, and it was great. So each individual can make a difference on how we use our product and how we promote our product. We always try to practice what we preach. So the partners, which are 6 of them at Swine Vet Center, we got $100 pork packages for all the employees and every staff and everything here a couple weeks ago. We're going to grill. They have a monster building project in St. Peter. We're grilling out October 9th for all the downtown business people. We only offer pork entrees at our Christmas party. Ruth goes to the people that are going to do our Christmas party and say, Tim will not allow anything but pork. And they go, well, I only have one on the menu. He goes, you will have choices, or you won't get our Christmas party. I started with Bob and Tom Berker, 5-6 years ago, Bob, about sugar donuts at our breaks. None of us that are getting a few years on us need sugar donuts. Why don't we do it like the Europeans do? This is IPVS Hamburg, breakfasts and lunches and stuff. They have meats out everywhere. I think it's healthier than the sugar donuts. And why don't we do that everywhere? I've brought that up at major meetings or board meetings, whatever. We could help change the eating habits of people one by one. It's a hell of a product. People are, you know, here's $1.59 local. This is a couple, probably 3-4 weeks ago. $1.59 a pound. Incredible stuff. So we have an awful good product. Very safe, very healthy. Ruth had it in our newsletter here a month or so ago. The article coming out of Feedstuff said now, and Al Leman, Bob was really down on nitrates and thought we're going to all die, or not, he didn't, but you know, that we'd never have bacon 30 years from now. Well, now in the Feedstuffs article it said nitrates and cured meats are good for you. They help clean out your arteries and stuff. So very safe. Couple people in the room were on this trip with me in Denmark. They were in the mid-90s. They were going to go outdoor pigs because we had to be outdoors. And we were there on the 5th turn of outdoor pigs, and they couldn't control salmonella. And so they shut the thing down, outdoor pigs and salmonella. This was in Newsweek, May 2008, happy pigs. And we have outdoor happy pigs. And Joe, I think, and Butch, some of us that are old enough kind of remember some of this stuff. And my memory isn't quite the happy. My memory is more like this, you know. And our young vets are really good. They don't complain, but if they do, I talk to them about what we had to do. Okay, go preg check that group 3 there, you know. Or been there, done that, you know. And we just didn't spend money to go inside just because producers had too much money. We wanted to spend money. And so I look at something like that and go, happy pigs. You know, I don't quite get it. I'm thinking food safety, and I don't like being outsold. Because to me, it's not, doesn't make sense. We don't worm any of our finishing pigs. Haven't for 20 years. Guys do slaughter checks. They post pigs all the time. We never see worms. You better worm those other pigs I just showed you. You have outdoor and stuff. You better worm them. I put that picture in there for our young vets. I don't know if our young vets have ever seen a worm. So I got to teach them this old history here for worms. I know a bunch of them haven't done mange. 15 years ago, probably half of us worked a quarter of our time eradicating mange. We don't have mange anymore. Our young vets I know have not seen mange. We don't have a client with mange. You have outdoor pigs and some of that, you're going to have parasites and worms. Toxo, none of our producers understand toxo. We have outdoor pigs. You're going to have cats run around. You're going to have, you know, there's issues that I look at our industry and go, I'm really pretty happy and pretty proud of what we're doing. I don't really like having somebody tell me I need happy pigs because I equate it to some of this stuff. The flu, I think we're missing it in flu. There would be an elevated flu concern if more poultry and hogs were outside. I don't know, only the Minnesota people probably know, but Minnesota poultry went indoors 20, 25 years ago because they could not control influenza. The wild birds always came and the flocks got influenza. So they all got together 20, 25 years ago and said, we better put these birds inside to control influenza. Well, if we had all our pigs outdoors, all the poultry outdoors, and we had all the wild birds coming in, I think we'd have a lot more flu concerns than we have today. And we're not selling this as an industry. To me, we sit and take it all the time. This is a great point, I think, in the flu stories, that we're lucky we're inside. We're lucky we have environmentally controlled pigs. Lucky we've done what the poultry has done to control influenza. Always worried about the hungry of the world. I've been there, done this in Minnesota and the upper Midwest. This is not good use of the world's food supply. You couldn't get under 4. Now we can hardly break over 3 on finishing barns. 25%. But you put this and put pigs out there, they're still going to be bad today. So it's kind of on my soapbox. Peter, Bob, you guys gave me the soapbox, so I took it there. But in summary, I'm pretty proud of this industry, proud of what we put together. It's very, very tough times. We have to help the producers through it. I think it's an industry to be proud of. I think it'd be an incredible industry if we are PRRS free.